The ruins of the great city of Hattusha are an awe-inspiring sight. They sit right in the center of modern Turkey on a rocky outcrop overlooking a bend in the Kızılırmak River. Hattusha's crumbling walls of grey limestone stand out against the tawny yellow grassland of the hills, lying where they fell over 3,000 years ago. One look will tell you that Hattusha was once a mighty fortress. Its double wall was defended by over 100 towers, its thick gateways decorated with carved sculptures of lions. For centuries, this was the capital of the mighty Hittite Empire, which ruled a large portion of Turkey during the Bronze Age. Hattusha's people cultivated wheat, barley, and lentils, and wore clothes spun from the wool of sheep they kept in the surrounding hills. But if you dig down into the ruins of Hattusha, what you find is a thin black layer right above the city's ancient floors. This layer is made up of ash, charred wood, and rubble scorched in a fierce fire. It dates back to the end of the 13th century BC, around the year 1200 before the start of the Christian calendar, and when you step back and take in all the details, it's a little breathtaking. Walls and roofs collapsed, bricks shattered and melted, and it's clear that whatever happened to Hattusha, the destruction was savage, unrelenting, and total. After that, the archaeological record here ends except for the signs of a few scattered scavengers eking out an existence among the rubble. The ruins of Hattusha remained empty for centuries, a haunted place where most feared to go. 20 kilometers to the north, the ancient city of Hoyuk, where the Hittites buried their kings in opulent tombs, shows the same thing. It is completely covered by ash and rubble at the same level. 100 kilometers to the east of that, at another fortified Hittite town known as Karagolan, you can find arrowheads littering the earth like fallen leaves and the bones of men, women, and children left lying in the streets, right where they fell. In fact, if you zoom out right across the eastern Mediterranean, anywhere you go in the entire region across an area spanning over 1,000 kilometers, you will find this layer of destruction. Archaeological evidence is quite clear. At some point between the year 1200 and 1100 BC, right at the end of the period we call the Bronze Age, a wave of destruction washed across the entire region. It wiped whole civilizations off the map and left nothing in its wake. One by one, vast and ancient empires like the Hittites, Ugarit, the Minoans, and the Mycenaean Greeks collapsed altogether. They collapsed so completely that they disappeared from the historical record. It took some of these areas nearly 1,000 years to recover after the violent end of the Bronze Age, and exactly what happened is still one of humanity's most fiercely debated mysteries. Music. My name's Paul Cooper and you're listening to the Fall of Civilizations podcast. Each episode, I look at a civilization of the past that rose to glory and then collapsed into the ashes of history. I want to ask, what did they have in common? What led to their fall? What did it feel like to be a person alive at the time witnessing the end of their world? In this episode I want to look not at the collapse of one civilization but at the collapse of many. This catastrophe, which historians have called the Late Bronze Age collapse, has become one of the enduring puzzles of archaeology. I want to explore how so many societies could collapse all at once and seemingly without warning. I want to look at the conditions that led up to this collapse and examine the lessons it might teach us in our increasingly globalized and interconnected world. Historian Robert Drews puts it bluntly. Within a period of 40 to 50 years, almost every significant city in the eastern Mediterranean world was destroyed, many of them never to be occupied again. For a long time after the year 1200, it is safe to say that there were no cities in the eastern Mediterranean area. One of the ways in which the memory of the Late Bronze Age collapse may have survived into the modern day is through the epic poetry that was written about this time. You may have heard of some of it, It relates the destruction of a great walled city in the eastern Mediterranean called Troy. The epic poems known as Iliad and Odyssey are ancient pieces of oral poetry attributed to a man named Homer who may or may not have existed. These poems were passed down for centuries through the period that followed the Bronze Age collapse, which we call the Greek Dark Ages. They survived by word of mouth, with each poet-singer using astonishing skills of memory to memorize and pass them on, lengthening and embellishing them along the way until they were finally written down in the 8th century BC. The poetry of the Iliad especially relates the story of a great 10-year war that took place in eastern Mediterranean and took up most of the manpower of Greece. This war was led by a man named Agamemnon, a king of Mycenae. In the 2nd millennium BC, the city-state of Mycenae was one of the major centers of Greek civilization, a mighty city to rival the Hittite capital of Hattusha. About 90 kilometers southwest of Athens, Mycenae was a military stronghold which dominated much of southern Greece and had a population of over 30,000 at its height. Like Hattusha, it decorated the gates of its mighty citadel with carved stone lions. Over a millennium later, in the 2nd century AD, the Greek travel writer Pausanias wrote breathlessly about his visit to the ruins. The wall, which is the only part of the ruins still remaining, is a work of the Cyclopean made of unwrought stones, each stone being so big that a pair of mules could not move the smallest from its place to the slightest degree. Classical Greeks believed that only the mythical one-eyed giants, the Cyclopes, would have had the strength to move the enormous boulders that made up the walls of Mycenae. It's a 2nd century version of the History Channel's Ancient Aliens conspiracy theories today. Even then, people found it hard to believe that people so distant to them could have possessed such ingenuity and skill and then disappeared forever. But Mycenae's leading role in the Trojan War is what cemented its place in the Greek imagination. Exactly how much of the actual historical event of the Battle of Troy has survived in Homer's epic is still subject to bitter historical debate. For the longest time it was assumed that the Trojan War was an invention of the imagination and that the city of Troy was a myth. But that all changed with the discovery of the ruins of Troy in modern Turkey at the end of the 19th century. Now, many historians agree that Troy may have been a coastal outpost of the Hittite Empire, and we now know that it was a grand city much as Homer describes, with an impressively fortified citadel. According to legend, the walls of Troy were built by the gods Poseidon and Apollo, and at the time the Iliad may have taken place, they were certainly impressive, 9 meters high with towers soaring up to 18 meters. Outside of this, a ranging curtain wall enclosed a larger area of the city. But the ruins of Troy are strangely silent. That is, there has been almost no writing uncovered in any excavations of the city. Many scholars now agree that the Trojan War related by Homer may have been a real event, or at least a composite of events filtered through the lens of mythology and refracted by the Chinese whispers effect of oral transmission. Archaeology shows that Troy was attacked repeatedly and had to defend itself again and again, which is indicated by repairs undertaken to the citadel's fortifications. We can see traces of fire on its stones, while human remains are found in houses and in the streets. Bronze arrowheads have also been found littering the ground in Troy's fort and citadel, and in fact, it seems Troy was burned twice towards the end of the 13th century, right around the time the destruction was beginning to rain down on the whole region. Today, most scholars date the events of the Trojan War to just the period we have been discussing, the end of the 12th century BC and the late Bronze Age collapse. As a novelist and a student of literature, I tend to have a bias towards giving literary sources more weight than a formal historian might. But for my part, I don't think it's unreasonable to argue that these poems may have incubated, at least in a hazy form, an authentic memory of those days, the feeling of apocalypse that must have washed over the region and a war that seemed to dwarf all others since. The Greek poet Quintus Smyrnius, in his poem The Fall of Troy, gives us just a glimpse of the violence of that time. Blood ran in torrents, drenched was all the earth, as Trojans and her alien helpers died. Here were men lying quelled by bitter death, all up and down the city in their blood. Others on him were falling, gasping forth their life strength, others clutching in their hands their bowels that looked through hideous gashes forth, wandered in wretched plight around their homes. Before we go into just what happened at the end of the Bronze Age, I think it's worth pausing and painting a picture of what it was that collapsed, this vibrant and varied region that had survived for so many centuries and fell so suddenly. We often make the mistake of thinking of the ancient world as a series of insular and isolated states. Something about the monumental remains of their societies.